Hello and welcome to Patrick's Models and Transport. So this evening we're going to have a look at the Italian State Railways FS E424 electric locomotive. So a change of traction on the layout combined with a very Italian train, as you can see here. So let's bring the locomotive up here. The model is by Lima, of course. There we are, grandstand view of the locomotive. Let's see if this telephone is focusing. Okay, so the E424 group of locomotives was developed in the late 1930s as an evolution of the articulated E636 BO class, which was distinctive of Italian railways, and the E636 was the first Italian articulated locomotive that would then evolve into a long line of Italian articulated locomotives, the E646 and then the E656. Excellent machines. Articulated locomotives were very important in Italy because of the mountain territory. Italy consists mainly of mountains. We have the large plain, the Po Valley in the north of Italy, and also a BO articulated locomotive reduces the axle load on the line. Very powerful machines. But back to the E424, which is a BO. This locomotive was developed initially for local trains and shuttle services. And Italy was among the pioneering countries in Europe to electrify railways, together with Switzerland, mainly because of the general lack of coal. Italy has very little coal. The coal mines are in Sardinia, which is the geologically most ancient part of Italy, and the Sardinian coal is not very high-grade coal as well. So Italy always had the problem that it had to import coal, and so it was an obvious solution to try to exploit hydroelectric power. Italy is a country rich of mountains. We began building dams already before the Great War at the end of the 1800s, and then dam development continued, and is still continuing and hydroelectric power is a very important component in the current Italian energy production field. So that's that's a bit of a background story to Italy and its electric railways. Italy electrified in the 1930s. It electrified in direct current, 3,000 volts. It had done some there had been some other lines that had started at the turn of the century in three-phase, mainly in Piedmont, so the region around Turin and Liguria, and that's an item that we could talk about in another video. And then eventually they decided to go for direct current. Direct current was very good because it was ideal for the type of terrain, again, Italy has. Long climbs, locomotives that needed a lot of power, and at the time, direct current was the best solution. Of course, then, EC then became the standard European practice, and generally the worldwide standard practice for electric locomotives, electric traction, but Italy had electrified its whole network on DC, and so there was no point in reverting. It would have been much too expensive. And so Italy is a direct current, has a direct current electric railway network. Excuse me. Anyway, the whole point is that nowadays we have multi locomotives that run both, that can convert from direct current to AC, from DC to AC, so we can have through-running locomotives. We have Austrian locomotives coming into Italy, or German rail locomotives coming into Italy. But anyway, the Italian network is still DC. So back to our E424. So the E424, as I said, was developed as maximum speed of 90 kilometers per hour. And the initial plan was to be able to operate locomotives in tandem or with so coupled 2x2, controlling with if I don't remember badly, with double crews, but with the possibility of also reaching the train. This is why they had a central cab-mounted door on the front of the cab. Various tests were carried out, but then it was decided that it was too dangerous to pass from one locomotive to another, and so eventually now on the model has got the front door, but these front doors were then welded because of water ingress and wind and the like. And these locomotives, this class of locomotives with the total number of 158 machines, was rebuilt. Just a second. Go back a spot. So I don't remember if I mentioned. No. I'm getting lost here. Okay. I'm not beginning the video again anyway. Sorry, excuse me. I've done my homework. Anyway, the first two prototypes entered service in 1943 and 1944. They were then subject to tests, but they were then damaged by the Allied bombing, because Italy, as we know, was in the war, Second World War, and Italy was subject to intensive bombing campaigns. After the war, these locomotives and the rest of the class were built thanks to UNRWA funds for the rebuilding of the infrastructure in Europe. And they began their service on generally local services, and they were also fitted with a luggage compartment. You can see a luggage compartment here. The idea was to be able to carry luggage in a locomotive, but it was never used. But the luggage compartment roll-up was always remained there. These locomotives eventually, in the 1970s, were used for push and pull shuttle trains in the MDVE livery, which was an orange and red livery, very elegant, and eventually they continued in service until 2008. Many of the class that had been converted for push and pull service were actually received the XMPR livery, the white, blue and green one, the one that no train enthusiasts in Italy really like. It was developed by a British design studio, and it wasn't very appreciated. Anyway, the original livery of these locomotives was Castano Isabella. Castano Isabella, Castano is chestnut, so chestnut, and Isabella was a shade of beige. Many people comment that Italian electric locomotives had rather an unbecoming colour scheme, this sort of two-tone beige and brown. But we have to think that this was paint, that it was cheap to make and very resistant to dirt and very resistant to fading with the sun, because Italy is a country with a very strong sun. And we have to also think that old pigments were not so resistant. That's one of the reasons why cars were generally painted black or dark blue. There wasn't such a variety of colour, as we can see instead with the motor cars on the layout. I've added a few motor cars. And eventually, starting from the 70s, all the Castano Isabella two-tone brown and beige locomotives and carriages were then standardized into just Isabella, so just beige, which made them look really much more plain. And then, as we said, they received the specific dedicated livery, the MDVE, for the shuttle service, and then eventually the dreaded and dreadful XMPR. I don't appreciate it at all, don't like it. I've actually seen some of these in service in the area of Milan, and I have a photo dating back to 2004, which I'll have to find and maybe make a little dedicated on the desk video dedicated to this locomotive, where we can open it up and have a look. Now we'll switch to the model. The model is a Lima model powered by the usual faithful G-type pancake or Ringfield motor. This model is a 1970s model by the look of it. The E424 model appeared initially in the 1960s, and in the 1960s it was still powered by a vertical motor. So a vertical motor that went down directly onto the axle with a worm drive. It then received the pancake motor starting from the, I think, late 60s, beginning of the 70s. Now I'd have to have some extra homework about this. And this particular locomotive, I bought it for a very good price, really cheap, because it had damaged pantographs. One was completely mangled and another one was not in very good condition, but still there. It probably, no doubt, been played with intensely. I serviced the locomotive. I removed quite a lot of fluff from the bogies and from the motor, but the commutator and the brushes were in good condition, and I cleaned everything. Of course, I lubricated the gears, even if they say that you don't really need to lubricate Lima G motor gears. A spot of lubrication is always good. I use technical petroleum jelly. It doesn't gunk up. It doesn't dissolve, and it doesn't damage the gears, the plastic gears, the nylon gears. And with a mix of petroleum jelly and sewing machine oil on the motor bearings, and that guarantees excellent running of this motor, which I quite like it in electric locomotives because it nearly sounds like the real thing. These are rheostatic locomotives, and they have a particular noise. I've seen this type of both the E636, E646, E656 in service, so I've lived in Italy with these locomotives, and the sound they make of the G motor makes a similar sound. It sort of reminds you of the real thing. And anyway, that's enough chatting for the moment. We'll couple it up to our passenger train that you see over there. So let's go and see what direction we're going in. Oh, we're still going forward. Let's go back. Oops, it helps if the signalman change the points. The signalman, the lights are off, he must be having a sleep. The road. Okay. The hand of the video maker has to take over control. Okay, then we go. Let's reverse onto the train. Is that coupled up? Has it? Bleep. Okay, very well. So the front coupling on this Lima first class carriage is a bit rusty, as you can see. It's not in very. I've not had this carriage very long. I've given it a basic clean-up, but I've not. It needs some more TLC. Okay, in fact, you can see that it's missing its buffers. I always like to reconstruct the buffers. This is a passenger train consisting of a Lima ABZ first-class carriage. This is a 1960s moulding, which is it's not at full length. Lima's locomotives always respected 187 scale, HO scale, to the millimeter. But for reasons of circulation on the layout, tight layouts, tight curves and so on, the carriages were generally shorter, so less realistic, and the length was at 1/100th, not 187, 1/100th. This is a mixed train because, as you know, I like to combine things. And okay, we've got this is a vintage carriage. Here we have two Corbellini carriages, which are true scale. These are 187. These are Hachette models. You can find them second-hand very cheap. I have two of them for the moment, and they're actually based on the mouldings of the Lima Expert range, so they're actually quite good. Quite basic. They're not super detailed and things like this, but they're very nice. And these are in the Castano Isabella shade. Maybe not a perfect shade, but they're nice. They look well. The Corbellini carriages were developed in the immediate post-war period, the reconstruction period, as local train carriages, with two central doors, They came both in bogie version and the 2-axle version, and they remained in service until the 1990s. So we have two Hachette Corbellini, and then we have a Lima Corbellini. This is a Lima Corbellini in a different color scheme, in the grey grigio ardesia or slate grey, which was introduced starting from the late 60s and in the late 60s and 70s. Of course, this is a model with the, what we can see here, the Experimental Oval FS logo, which here it says Milano Firenze on the side of it. I don't know. This, you wouldn't be traveling between Milan and Florence on a Corbellini carriage. It wouldn't be very comfortable. But this is a Lima train set carriage, which is actually quite rare to come by. It wasn't sold as a separate item, and it's a very basic model, toy train, because as you can see, let's see if I get a pointer. Here's a pointer, ancient pencil. There are no buffers here. I would like to add the buffers, but there's really no space, so I think I'll just continue. And you can see that this carriage is shorter than this one. So this is in 1/100 scale length, and not, but I think that it looks quite well on the train, because having a different color scheme, you get away with it. And in the end, we're playing trains. We're just playing trains. Let's be serious. Okay, then we have an ABZ luggage van, which I bought second-hand. A very good model in very good condition, much better than the first-class carriage with metal wheels and all the rest of it. And that's it. So I think that's enough talking for the moment, and I'll just get this train going. Let's let the E424 speak and tell us its story. Front lighting, reversible lighting on the locomotive. Italian locomotives generally circulate with one pantograph connected, and it's always the rear pantograph. Occasionally, they also circulate with both pantographs lifted if they're on lines where there's a lack of, maybe the overhead is not tight enough, or conditions where there is ice on the overhead, or humidity. We also have to remember that northern Italy is a very foggy area with a very high level of humidity in winter. Some traffic on the layout today. Very controllable model. We're under 75% speed. controllable. The Lima motor, the Lima G motor, if well lubricated, it'll maybe need a little bit more current to start, but then you can really, it's a good crawler. This is a trick with the Lima G motor, is to a good lubrication, to clean, the commutator gets filthy, but that's a trick. The trick is to keep it clean and to keep it lubricated. And lubrication, you just need a spot of technical petroleum jelly on those gears, and a mix, as I said at the beginning of the video, of technical petroleum jelly and sewing machine oil on the motor bearings. Maybe if there's flashing on the gears, you can sand them down very lightly, but on a whole, it's a very, very reliable motor. Anyway, that's our E424 in its in all its 1950s and 60s glory, in two-tone Castano Isabella with its red pantographs. Mentioning the pantographs, I bought, as I told you before, they were broken. They were just very simple. They were black plastic, and I painted these using Vallejo matte red modeling paint, and I also painted the insulators white. So it is now prototypical. I based myself on photographs. This model would need a few more repairs. There's a couple of steps missing here. I'm going to glue them on. I've taken the measurements here. I'm going to have to add the steps, and then I should paint the nameplates, and that'll be a job I'll do in the next shortly, so it'll actually get done. We'll improve it a little bit. The molding is actually very, very realistic. It's a very realistic molding. This is one of the... Lima was very good at electric locomotives and diesels. Less so on steam, even if we saw the French the 141R. That's a very nice model, and even the class BR39 German State Railways locomotive that we've been seeing in the last videos. But they were really good at the electrics and the diesels, and that was their bread and butter. That was really their bread and butter, because it was a family-run company in the province of Vicenza, and of course they had to make ends meet, and with a pancake motor, and if you open these locomotives, they're all very similar inside. The BOs are all very similar. So you have the chassis, a big heavy metal weight there, and very standardized model. And Lima was the Italian toy train and low-end model train manufacturer that respected 187 to the millimeter, whereas Rivarossi was the upper end. Rivarossi's models were more detailed, the wide range of Italian steam locomotives, but Rivarossi built the European models and the Italian locomotives in 180 scale, not 187, because when they began production, let's say that HO was there was a free interpretation of HO. Rivarossi models for the American market are 187, because they were a big manufacturer for the American market, and they're 187, correct 187, but for the Italian market they are 180. So if you have Rivarossi locomotives and you're ready to pay the extortionate prices they ask for them, it's a problem to mix things together, because it's not just a matter that the carriages are a bit shorter. These are in 1/100 scale, but your locomotives are too big. It would be like having double O locomotives pulling HO, nearly double O locomotives pulling HO stock. So as much as I love Rivarossi, I won't be venturing into the Rivarossi vintage trains, also because it cost a packet. And the other curiosity, Rivarossi eventually, there was in the model railway universe, there was in the 80s, the sort of scale war began, because collectors and model railway enthusiasts wanted to be able to mix, because Lima in the meantime had improved. It's starting from the late 70s, Lima begins to be more detailed, and its diesels and electrics were always very good. This is a good locomotive, for example, and it began to expand into the model train sector, leaving the toy train sector, also because starting from the 80s there was a crisis in the toy train sector. And I'm showing you around the model railway while I'm chattering away. Oh, well, another thing, I don't think you've ever seen the front of the station. We've always seen the station from the other side as I talk, and this is the reason that the customer base began pushing for Rivarossi to adhere to the NEM standards and to actually make. So Rivarossi began producing in 187 scale, but they continued making the Italian steam, the older models in 180. Then eventually they took over Lima. Then Rivarossi was taken over by Lima. Lima took over Juef as well, and then eventually Lima went bust, and they were taken over by Hornby. And now Rivarossi and Lima are both Hornby brands, but that's a completely different story, which we could talk about on another occasion. I might go and have a look from outside at the ex-Lima works. I could take you there. That would be an idea. That might be an idea I'll do very soon, because I've never been, even if I live in the neighbouring province of Padova. And a colleague of mine, her mother worked for Lima, and her father was a railwayman. So that might be an interesting interview we could do on another occasion. I'll have to ask her if she wants to have a chat about this. She likes trains. Okay, very well. So that's enough chatting for this evening. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you liked it, give us a like and subscribe to the channel, and also click the notification button. And now we'll say goodbye or arrivederci with the E424, Ferrovia dello Stato E424. Tutti in carrozza! Cheerio, and see you next time. Ciao, ciao.